Oh, hey, sorry, I'm running a few minutes late because I actually got a few minutes extra back in my day today. You want to know why? I've been playing with this brand new platform, podcastai.com, and I got the founder, the CEO on the line. And dude, the guy's saving me time. He's saving me money. But we're going to dig into more today on the show. Edward Brawer joining me here live in the lab with Keith Bilous.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab.
All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. So I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going.
How did you go viral on TikTok?
You were on America's Got Talent.
How much did you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid.
Keith and Steve here in live in the lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? What you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real.
We brought you in with some Marley.
I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2.
I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if they're all going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
Hey, what's going on, nation? When we bring the bagpipes out. Yeah, we're going to have fun today. We are going to have fun today. And why is that, you wondering? I get to nerd out. I get to totally geek out. I do. I get to geek out, nerd out on what I like to do is create. I am a creator at heart. And today we're going to talk about creating. We're talking about creating your podcast. We're going to talk about saving money on your podcast. We're going to talk about giving you back time. You're like, what? Yes. I'm going to give you back time today. And I think my guests might even help save you money. So this hour or so is going to be a wonderful return on your investment. Trust me. Edward Brawer joins me today. Guy's a genius. Yep, he's a genius. So he's going to come chat with us today. He might have invented a few things, created a few things himself as a creator, a software guy. He started a couple companies. He might be one of the most lazy guys I know coming into the lab here. You know how we love to invite. There's that button. You know how we love to invite lazy people here, people that don't run ultra marathons, people that don't create companies, people that don't create multiple companies along the way. Edward Brawer's here today. So the guy started podcastai.com, and a little bit of his story, he's like, hey, there's all these tools to make podcasts. And he's like, why do you guys need all these tools? And I've been one of them, even though I'm not creating a podcast, I'm creating a show, as we know, a live show on demand as a podcast later. But regardless of that, Edward sits back and says, I see all these tools in the world. What could I do to solve this problem so that everybody doesn't have to use 1,000 tools, so you can just use one tool? So Edward goes out to solve this problem, I believe, which is saying to everybody, you don't need to use this. You don't need to use this. You don't need to use this tool. You don't need to use this tool. All you need to use is podcastai.com. Like, apparently, get this. So I tried the platform out, loved it. But I'm loving it again. So I tried it for a month, full transparency, really enjoyed the entire experience. Fantastic platform. But what I found was lacking for me in my workflows was that it wasn't fully dialed into my workflows until I snuck a look at it again last week. And I was like, dude, this guy's just showing up every single day. Brawer and the team are showing up every single day, making it better and better every single day, apparently. Because last week I got rid of a couple of platforms I used to use, considering using, by adding different tools. So today we're going to talk with Edward about how you can weave podcastai.com into your workflows, more than likely reduce a number of different tools, and probably have a better experience along the way. So why don't I just stop the monologue and stop the bagpipes? Just love them. Oh, who doesn't love bagpipes? We're going to welcome in, I think, a fellow Canadian. No, I know he's a fellow Canadian. Yes, he is. Edward Brawer joining me from Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. There. Oh, you know what? Hey, I got something here I can try today, actually. So let's just do this with me today. So let's just try this. So you said Toronto, Canada, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. We got the applause for the Torontonians, and we're all applauding because the Maple Leafs got knocked out of the playoffs. That's my Jets, so we'll leave that there. Edward, thank you for joining me today in the lab. When I saw us on the calendar, I was excited about our conversation. It's funny because I had a guy yesterday in the lab. I had a young man named Anthony Bourque. He might have flown one of the first missions into 9/11. So I had a fellow like that in the lab yesterday telling incredible stories. I had a soldier in the lab on Monday. I had an intuitive coach in the lab last Monday. And now I have this incredible genius, Edward Brawer, who makes great things for guys like me to do my business, joining me today in the lab. I'm a very privileged human being who gets to talk to all these different humans. So it's not lost upon me, but that every single day I come in, I'm like, okay, who am I talking to today? And today I was looking forward to sitting down with you to talk about software, talk about podcasts, talk about post-production, talk about your vision, talk about where you came from. Speaking of, where did you come from? You're a Toronto guy. I teased your accomplishments along the way. You have not been sitting around, Edward Brawer.
Correct.
So let's tell Business Athlete Nation about Edward Brawer. So where are you from in Toronto, Edward?
Midtown. Yeah. Around like Glencairn, Bathurst, that place.
Awesome. And you've been building your whole life, right?
Yep.
Yes. So you started in the video space. Am I correct?
Yeah. So actually, it depends how far back you want to go.
Let's go far back because I did see something even earlier than that. But to me, maybe the breakthrough was video. Is that the first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, going to it was sort of like a mix of YouTube and Patreon. That's what Sean Dunco, my co-founder, and I cut our teeth on.
Yes.
But the real breakout is podcast AI.
It is a breakout. So I got to be honest. When I saw us up on the calendar, I couldn't recollect how we got connected. But you knocked on my door in X, and you said, "Hey, I want to be on your show. I have something to talk about." And then I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to talk to this guy." And I immediately signed up for your platform that same night. I remember where I was upstairs. I think it was a Thursday or Friday, and it was late at night. And I was like, "Oh, I want to try this," because I'm always looking for ways to improve the workflow, change workflows. I said right from the beginning, as I've built the Business Athlete Performance Lab, and I'll share with you, Edward, I'm building this with AI decisions first. I love humans, but we'll let the humans do the great human things, and then we'll let the inevitable come in place, which is these artificial intelligence agents to do the things that maybe they can do better for us. So when I heard your story and I checked into it, I was like, I'm going to try this out. Immediately loved it. Immediately was taken aback with magic. Talk about podcastai.com.
Yeah, so podcastai.com, our slogan is automate your podcast. And that's the ambition, really, from A to Z, to automate everything that is automatable about a podcast. Yes. Because, what podcasters love doing is what you're doing right now, what we're doing right now, the actual recording, the actual conversation.
Yes.
And all the rest is just overhead.
Yes.
And nobody needs to be manually doing that. We say we take you 80% there, and then you can fine tune. But I can actually go into how we have another breakthrough, which is how we get to 99% there, which is the really killer thing coming out soon.
I would love to hear about that. But before we get there, Edward, in my journey of doing a little bit of research, I understood that you started podcastai.com. And I want to be specific with that because when I first looked at you, I thought it was podcast.ai. Yeah. But no, it's podcastai.com. And I'm going to actually get this on the banner so people know very clearly where they're going. It's podcastai.com. You came from a place where you discovered the power of what you could get out of a transcript. Am I right?
Yes. Actually, the real inception of this was a little over a year ago. I created an AI parody of the All In podcast. So for the listeners that don't know, the All In podcast is Jason Calacanis, David Sachs, Chamath Palihapitiya, David Friedberg. It's the #1 tech podcast. And it was about episode, I remember, 117. And Jason and Sachs, they were going back and forth. Hey, watch out, you're going to get replaced by an AI. No, you're going to get replaced by an AI. So what I put out was a 10-minute parody, their voices of them essentially reborn as AIs. It went super viral on Twitter/X. I put out in total 6 of those. And people were like, is this real? Is there a GitHub repo? What's the source code? Are you releasing this? And Sean and I, we realized 2 things. One, and if you're a founder, especially if you're a second-time founder, you realize distribution is more important than anything, right? Having the goods is necessary, but it's not sufficient. If you don't have distribution, right, you're just doing something and with nobody around, nothing's going to happen. So anyways, we pierced that problem, but also what we realized is this is a generational opportunity. What's happening right now, it's like when the internet was being created 25, 30 years ago. And we were just too young by this much, I think, to actually obviously participate. When the internet was being created, you're Torontonian, I was at, internet camp at UCC, learning HTML3. So this time around, it's the right moment, it's the right space, it's the right opportunity. It's insane what we can do with podcasting. And you're right, everything actually boils down to the transcript is at the core of everything. And we'll talk about how that is the flywheel that everything turns around.
When I heard that statement, it really got me thinking about what I'm doing for a living right now, which is talking. And all of the data that I'm capturing through conversation. And all of that missed opportunity with people that aren't capturing their conversations with data. I'll reveal. So I've recently added otter.ai to my workflows. You talk about adding magic to my life. Since they've added some AI magic to those, like every conversation I'm having now, Edward, I'm adding it to my workflow. I can analyze the data, like these kind of shows. I can pick things out. I can reflect upon. So when I read your comment about the power and the magic of the transcript, it got me thinking about he's onto something here. So it really got me digging into going, I need to unlock the power of every conversation I'm having here in the lab. Edward, I do 2 hours a day live talking to human beings. That's outside of my business meetings. And I'm thinking, wow, Edward might reveal in a conversation with me that let's say you had children. I'm not sure if you had children, but you might let slip to me that your child has a birthday coming up. I take that note. Maybe one day your family gets a surprise and delight from me saying, hey man, I think you're being on my show. Happy birthday to your daughter. He's thinking, how did he know that? We had a conversation and I happened to catch it. I happened to hear it. Like that's the power of the transcript. And when I heard what you were doing with it, it got me thinking as well. So let's dig into when you guys had that discovery, Edward.
Yeah, it's worked our way to it from those AI episodes that we did.
Yeah.
So that was creating that content. And we got to the realization, yes, you will be able to generate fully synthetic content in the future. In fact, it's all technically doable right now. The moment is like 1895. There's no modern car, but all the parts to build one literally exist, and somebody just has to put them together.
Mm-hmm.
So the insight is Westworld is technically achievable like now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just has to put the parts together. And when you get into our system, you create the host of your show, right? You create your show, you create the host, and you upload a voice sample and you put in a bio for the host. And so now our AI systems, they have context. They know who you are, right? And we can generate content in your voice, and the LLM actually knows your background. And so that AI host actually has access to a knowledge base, and that knowledge base is all your transcripts, everything you've said on your podcast. And so how powerful does that get when it essentially has a look into all the conversations you've had? There's so much information. There's the daughter's birthday. There's I'm from Canada. And even more detail than that, obviously. So that's when it gets real powerful. We have a feature called an ad read generator. It'll generate an ad read for any sponsor in the person's voice. It ad libs the entire ad read. Let's say you want a 2-minute read in the voice. And we were giving the demo, and we used as an example a company that the person had worked for prior. And so the person says, oh, this is a great service to use. And then she goes, I should know as the former VP of operations there, right? So how is it able to say that in the ad read? Because it has the context on the host, the bio. And so all of that information that we're putting in is super powerful. Those transcripts are super powerful. And that's what creates the flywheel around the system. Everything comes from the transcript. Your chapters, your show notes, everything comes from the transcript. We have a feature where you can have a chat with the AI version of yourself. That's powered by the transcript. So the transcript really is the all-powerful thing in this equation. ChatGPT, which is what really sparked, that was the firing gun for all this. ChatGPT was 2 realizations. There's no technical innovation between ChatGPT and GPT-2 or 3, which was out at the time. It was actually a realization, a very technical one, if we're going to get really geeky.
Please.
The technical revelation, this is like these LLMs are like an autocomplete. They just predict the next word that makes sense, given what you've written. So if you start the sentence by, you're an AI chat, you're an AI agent tasked with helping a human, here's the human's first question, it completes that story based on the premise. And if you say, here's the history of the conversation so far, it now has that context. So when we use these LLMs to generate content or to generate show notes or whatever we're doing, we're putting in that context and it completes the story. And that's actually how it works.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys, is GPT-4 Omni 4.0 in your, is it in the framework now, or is it coming in the framework?
Yeah, we've begun rolling it in on various aspects.
You said something earlier, which I think is, to entrepreneurs out there, I want your ears to perk up, because you said something earlier to me, which really, I think is a lesson for every entrepreneur who's listening right now. You saw an opportunity when you saw some dudes who have a few bucks, have had some success in tech, and you're like, those guys could be, I'm just going to go and do something with them without them even knowing it. And you parodied the All In podcast. You invested your time, your money, your effort. Nobody paid you, but you're like, I'm gonna go give this a shot. I'm gonna go virtually knock on their door and just see if it works. There's a lot of people sitting around right now, Edward, with an idea, and I don't know how to do that, or I don't know, I don't really want it. You guys just did it. Had you not taken the step to do it, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. It's actually as simple as that. Right? What's the lesson to entrepreneurs, Edward?
Nike's slogan, just do it.
Yeah.
They had a point. It turns out if you do something cool, and if you're in Toronto, if you're in Canada, you feel really disconnected. There's no real VC in Canada, meaning venture capital. It feels like you're not in network. If you want to do a venture-based startup, they're not going to answer your cold calls. They're not going to they're not going to read your cold deck. At best, that becomes research if you become a breakout later on. It's really close because there's so many people trying to get in that they have to filter. And so you have to have a warm intro, you have to be a network, you have to prove yourself some way. And so if you consider that the task is proving yourself, really showing what you can do, because the truth is you have to be able to do something, right? If you're not able to produce, if you're not able to create something somebody wants, it doesn't matter if you have the access, because what are you going to show them? So it turns out this is actually, it feels really hard, but it's not that hard. It's actually easy. Everybody's on Twitter, everybody's on X. And if you do something amazing and you post it, you can get those, you can do that knock knock like you were saying. You can get that attention. You can get them retweeting it. You can get it going viral if you do something truly impressive. And once you've shown what you can do, people will be willing to say, okay, show me more. In our case, we went into Founder University. That's Jason Calacanis's on-ramp to his accelerator. And that's where we were able to keep doing what we had started, which is showing what we could do. So we got a bookmark check-in. They do these 25K checks as a bookmark in the companies that really stand out. So we got one of those. We then got invited into the accelerator. That was a 100K check. And now we're working on, actually, we're closing our round. And Launch is our biggest backer, is our actual lead. So they've tripled down on us. So the point is, it's all about showing what you could do. Keith, have you seen like Rick and Morty?
Yes, 100%.
The episode where the big asteroid or meteor or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
You got that. That's literally what it is.
Yes.
Show me what you got.
Yes. And show up and do it consistently.
Yeah.
And that I think is a message that is, and not be afraid to do it. I know it's such an old cliche, but people are afraid to fail. People are embarrassed of what others might think of them. And often it's one's own mirror which holds them back. It's interesting, Edward, because again, I'll tell you, what brought my attention to you was not only when we connected on X, but when I had heard that Calacanis invested in you. Like, I'm as ancient as he is. I've been around since the start of the internet with Jason. I spent some time with him in New York City years and years ago, back when Twitter had maybe 8 followers and there was every other kind of micro tweeting platform competing along the way. So I followed his journey and his career as I was building my first social media business. So when I saw that he invested in you, and I saw that others had invested in you, my ears continued to perk up, because
typically I like to invest in other human beings that are doing great things. And I'm thinking, okay, if that smart guy's investing in this smart guy, I should go pay attention over there. So, which really drew my attention to podcastai.com and what you were doing over there. So like I said, I used it for a month. What the challenge for me, Edward, and I think for many others, and I want to go here with you, is sometimes we don't want to tear down a house to build a new one. What I mean by that is it's disrupting workflows. There's somebody right now listening, going, okay, Edward, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're doing, but man, I got all these hours and days and months and my team's invested in these workflows. It seems like it's a big task to come over to your workflow and to your ecosystem, because I know once you get me locked in, it's going to be hard for me to go to somebody else. I'm trading one in for the other. What would you say to somebody who's not myself? Because I can tell you that I'm moving my workflows to podcastai.com. I just wanted to wait till halfway through the show to publicly declare it, because I love what you're doing, and we're drinking the same Kool-Aid around the transcript. The power is in what's happening right now. It absolutely is, because I, like you, a year ago discovered how I can create my synthetic Keith and my synthetic voices, and the nerd in me sat down in here in the lab before I started this whole thing and started playing with AI, going, oh, I see what's coming. I get it. So that's why another reason I was like, I'm going to geek out with Edward today, because I know we're drinking the same Kool-Aid, because it all starts with what's happening right now, frankly. And I'll tell you, I'm building this. My ambition, Edward, is to build a live conversation platform, right? With human beings having live conversations, old school talk radio, but 24/7 in today's media world, right? Live, but then instantly distributable. Mm-hmm. Right. So live, but also an on-demand podcast, but instant. And what I need instant is I need fast workflows.
Right.
Right.
So
like my one last thing, like my morning show wraps up at 5 minutes to the top of the hour. And right now it's taking me about 20 minutes to wrap up a workflow before I can push it out onto a podcast platform. I did a test with yours. I'll publicly tell everybody. I got it done in less than actually 5 minutes. What's holding me back is that there's some pieces to my business that I have to consider disrupting or looking at it differently, which brings me back to my question. What are you saying to somebody like myself going, what's the workflow change, Edward?
Yeah. So first of all, did you do some onboarding, or were you just self-serve? You just came on?
I just self-served myself.
Okay. So typically what we do with onboarding is we go over the workflows and we help you optimize, and maybe we'll give you a heads up. Hey, we're actually working on this. We're going to have this for you.
Gotcha.
That kind of provides the context for what we're doing. But and roughly around when did you come on?
I would have been probably about 6 weeks ago or so. I think probably about, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So right before we deployed the viral moments and post to the social media platforms.
Yes, because I have been using Opus and Munch, and I'll call them out, and they're okay, but it just adds to my workflow. It's like another add-on step, and I'm like, I just wish I could do this all in one spot. And then I'm like, well, Podcast AI does it all.
So let me tell you what we do now and where we're going. So the workflow right now is, and the context is you're live. So you have the output episode, and I see you're doing the mixing, you're doing all the production, essentially the editing live. That's perfect. Yes. And you have a video coming out the other end.
Yes.
Okay. So the workflow is you drop that video into Podcast AI. Mm-hmm. It goes out to, and we're actually working on, this is going to come out next week. All those steps where you were manually going through to do the post-production, those are going to be chain automated so that you don't even have to do that anymore. Okay. So it will literally be you drop in the file and you say go. In fact, we'll even have a Slack bot where you just say, hey, it'll be like your producer Nick, the AI producer Nick, here's my recording, put it out as the next episode. It will literally do everything. Okay. So that's drag and drop. But so you're putting in your episode into Podcast AI. It goes out your feed, Apple, Spotify, all those platforms. That's automatic. We've added push to YouTube and push to X. That means you're automatically on top of that, putting it out to those two platforms. That's number one. Number two, you have those post-production steps. And those post-production steps, description, title, chapters. The interesting thing that we're adding next week is adaptive mode. Adaptive mode solves the problem of you generate a description, and there's a few different tools that'll generate descriptions, but they're generic, right? This episode we delve into. The adaptive mode is actually going to look at your last 3 descriptions as context and adapt to the tone. So if you're doing that tune-up, that the descriptions brought you to 80%, you did that 20% tune up on your description. Just do that 3 times. From there on, the AI will produce up to 99% to your tone what you would have done, right? So that adaptive mode is that next unlock that we're releasing. And that's going to make this beyond any of those individual tools that we're all unifying into one workflow. And so you drop in your episode, it does all that post-production work for you. It will be actually chain automating it. And I'll tell you how we're getting to the automation next. But the next thing is the viral moments. That's the promotion aspect, right? And just the same way I was saying, if you're a founder, okay, you realize, second-time founders realize distribution is the thing. Promotion is the thing for the content you're doing, right? If you're not promoting it, it's not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. We all know that. And so Podcast AI actually generates the top 10 viral moments. And we had released that feature early because we had agencies using us and they were telling us, and I was telling them, hey, we're working on this thing that's going to generate the clips for you. Opus does. And I was telling them, hey, we're going to have it in a few months. This is a few months ago. And they told us, oh, if you can give us just the timestamps right now, you will save our editors hours. So we released it early. But our CTO, Greg Perkins, just came on a couple months ago, and we started working on those viral moments and actually making it so that those are generated in the cloud. If you generate something with Opus, it's come back in 20 minutes. Our viral moments, it's like you click 30 seconds, you got the clip.
Oh, dude.
It's absolutely fantastic. And
dude,
it not only does the clip, and it auto-loads it out.
Yes. So Uncle Keith's happy with that one because I need to get a sound effect for saving money because that's because I use Opus and I use Munch. It's 16 minutes and 20 minutes is short, but it's not 30 seconds. It's okay. We killed that already. But anyways, that's exceptional. So I've seen the viral clips. That's awesome. So you said something which I want to make sure I'm clear on. Push to YouTube. Push the audio as the podcast to YouTube or push the video to YouTube?
The video.
Oh, dude. All right. So I guess, I'm sorry. Descript, you are losing a customer. All right. Edward, you're back up next.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'll be straight. Because the other thing that was, I needed to, I was unclear about the YouTube thing. I was unclear about the viral moments. But the real reason I'm coming over to you, frankly, 2 hours of live content every single day, the fact that I can create an incredibly extensive, retrievable repository of all my conversations on your platform, and then pull them up and search them. That I looked at a different platform that can do that for me that I was quite excited about, but it just added another step to my workflow. If I can do it all on podcastai.com, why wouldn't I?
Exactly. Yeah, that's part of we're beating these other platforms on the actual features because we're dedicated to podcasting, but then we're also beating them on, we do the whole thing, right?
Yes.
So if you have the podcasting focus, we're Podcast AI, people sometimes, oh, why don't maybe you should make, teachers could use this. So you should have a different company name for education. We're just focused on podcasting.
Good for you.
So we have that
yes.
maniacal focus just on podcasting. So our tools are not, Opus can do clips for anything, but let's fine tune for podcasting and let's give people that simplicity that we have that underlying premise that's shared with them. Okay. And so it's just like podcasting, but also the whole workflow. And so you're putting it into Podcast AI. It goes to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, X. The post-production is done for you. And then the promotion is done for you. And so those viral moments, now we have those clips. It's super fast, 30 seconds. Okay. It does the viewporting. So right now this is an A/B shot, right? There's the two of us. Mm-hmm. It detects the faces. It stacks them vertically. It does the karaoke mode subtitles right between us, let's say. Mm-hmm. And then what it does is it generates the social post copy for LinkedIn, for X, for Instagram, for TikTok, for YouTube Shorts. And I might be missing one, but it's generating all that copy.
I will reveal to you my workflows right now, happily, frankly, because I'm just a transparent soul. So right now, my shows are over. I upload them to Descript. I do my post in Descript. I then generate
some AI generated copy from Descript because it does that as well. It finds chapters and you know the platform. I don't need to spend much time on it. But then I pull it out of there. I run it through GPT-4 because I have some of my own GPTs created on the way that I want them done. But I'm suspecting I can eliminate much of those steps by just doing it all inside of Podcast AI.
100%.
Yeah.
And let's zoom out on what's happening with AI.
Yes.
So there's the fundamental models, right? There's like the actual AI model that runs on the hardware, right? That's GPT 1, 2, 3. Starting with GPT-4, it's no longer just a model, right? With GPT-4, actually, you're talking to the website, and then the website, Harry Potter, like the hat that sorts which house you go into.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You put a sentence in, and it says, "Oh, you're talking about math? We're going to send you to the math model." Right, to get the answer. You're talking about media or whatever, we're going to send you to the model that's specific. So there's 8 models in GPT-4. And going forward, now you say, oh, draw me a picture of this. It's actually going, oh, the sorting hat goes, oh, they want to do a drawing thing. Okay, great. Write a command that'll work on the image generation, this DALL-E 3, which is the stable diffusion type command for that based on what they said. And then that brings out the image, gives it to the LLM, generates, oh, here's your image, and then it gives that back to you. So there's a lot of orchestration happening. And orchestration is the term I've come up with for what these applications are doing. They're orchestrating. They're doing what you're doing. What are you doing with your workflow? You're orchestrating, right?
Yes.
You're saying, here's my recording. I'm piping it into here. I'm putting it through this tool. I'm putting it through Descript, and now I'm giving it to ChatGPT, and I'm doing this stuff. You're doing the orchestration. What we're doing is we're creating a product, a platform that makes the most robust, productized orchestration with all the right assumptions that are really gonna hit it for everybody and equal the playing fields. You might be amazing at doing this yourself, even though it takes a lot of time because you're doing it manually. Some people might not be as good. An expression Jason Calcanis came up with is, we're your podcast arms dealer. Let's arm everybody to the teeth in this sense. So that's what we're doing. We're in the orchestration business. And that means one place, one tool, one workflow. And so you have the copy for those viral moments. We've actually started integrating those platforms. So we have Post to X, we have Post to YouTube. Tomorrow, Post to LinkedIn is coming out. And then Instagram and TikTok are coming out for those viral moments. And then we're putting in the scheduler. So you can either say, post it at this time on this day, or auto stagger these out for me.
What I like what you're doing, Edward, is you're starting from a place of, I think probably like myself, AI first, where with respect to every other platform on the planet right now, Canva and every other one with the same social tools, they're adding on AI. You guys are coming from it as, no, we're going to start here and then make decisions accordingly. I'm doing the same thing with the business athlete performance lab in this media business, which is embracing as much AI tools as possible, the large language models as possible, and weaving it all in. A curious question that I have, nerdy question. As we can develop our custom GPTs over on OpenAI's platform, and I can create my own GPTs, will I be able to grab that API and connect over to your platform and keep that consistency of how I want my content to be created? Do you follow me?
Yes. So what we're going to be doing, so the ethos here is, first of all, are you a Mac user or Windows user?
I'm a Mac user, yeah.
Okay, Mac user. So we embrace the Apple-like simplicity of, what does Apple do? They curate for people. They find the 90 to 95% solution that is perfect for most people. Okay, that's what the Apple Doc is. They're in the curation business. That's why people go to them, right? They create the UI that's going to fit for people and their workflows. And so to start, it's always simplicity. So for example, the viral moments generation. Opus will give you tons of customization, right? Because they're all vertical on the clipping, and it could be for more stuff than podcasting. So for example, for podcasting, you probably don't need a landscape mode. In some cases, you need a landscape mode for other contexts. To start, we're just going with, we give you the 90% solution that should work for you, probably works for you, unless you have a very complicated use case. And then we start exposing some reasonable customization that should cover the next 5%. And then if we add the ability to do the customization you need for that last part, we do it in a way that doesn't get in the way of people that don't need it. Okay. So by starting with that perspective, we do get to a point where we can add a field where you can put a custom instruction or pipe it into another tool. We do get there, but we don't start there.
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense. Edward, one of the features we have not talked about on your platform is the magic that happens once the episode is done and everything's all tidied and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And next thing you know, you have this beautiful website, essentially a website of your episode. A lot of people put a lot of work and effort into creating this landing page of content. You do it automatically and easily. Talk about that, Edward.
Yeah, so this is something that really excited Jason Galcanis, actually, because This Week in Startups, he has, at the time he had 1,700 plus episodes. Now he's at 1,950, a very long running podcast since about 2008, I would say. And he had never done the work of transcribing all of those. It was very expensive at the time, but also going back and finding all of those. And what we did is going back to where we started of spec work and just getting the attention and doing something and proving yourself out. We actually took all of his episodes. We found all those old YouTube episodes, and there's gold in there, right? There's like him interviewing people that became the CEOs of these massive companies. And so we actually created the system that would create a full website for him and the ability to search through all the past episodes, all the past transcripts, super powerful. He was very excited about this because his experience was they were using WordPress, and they had to get a developer for customization, and it was extremely expensive, and the WordPress got hacked. And at some point they said, this is too much. They called it quits. They just put up a link tree. And so in the sidebar of the website that Podcast AI automatically generates for you, that was inspired by Jason's link tree, right? So we gave him the ability to put those links. But that's the origin of that function. And to zoom out, Podcast AI creates a full website for you for your podcast. So it really is one workflow. You're uploading your episode. It goes off to all the platforms. It does all your post-production. It does all your promotion. It does your website. It does everything, right? And that's that vision of keeping the podcasting to the podcasters and all of that production stuff. You might still have, on a very high-end show, you'll still have a producer, somebody in charge of revising and all this stuff. The analogy I like to use is it's a bit like farming 120 years ago. Some massive proportion of the population was engaged in farming, manually using pickaxes. And then a little invention came up called the tractor. And now farming is 1 or whatever % of the population. It doesn't need to be more than that. So it's really about, bringing in those tools that let people do more rewarding work.
Yeah. So we haven't even got to the most sexy part, I don't think yet, if I'm the nerd about this whole thing, because we know that 12 months are going to happen from now, and we know 24 months from now are going to happen from now, and we also know 36 and even 60 months at Brawer are going to happen from now. We know the future's coming.
Yep.
Every conversation that human being has on your platform and records their voice, talk about the magic happening that human being can use their voice for in the future when we encourage our human beings listening right now to dream with what AI is inevitably doing. We all heard this last week, the Scarlett Johansson OpenAI thing about mimicking voices. Like, anybody listening right now, if you don't, and you know that you all hear it happening, though it's happening. Go to Edward's platform. You can record your voice and you can do voiceovers. Don't even show up for a commercial ever again. Just press play and just overwrite your commercials. So talk about the magic of that, Edward. Not only are you replacing workflows with one workflow, not only are you creating a website, but you're telling somebody that, oh yeah, just keep talking, Keith, just keep talking. Because in months from now or years from now, you won't even have to show up and talk because we'll just do it for you automatically. I say that in jest, but in some future truth as well. Edward, let's talk about this piece of the business and this piece of the platform.
So this is a really exciting part of it. So when you go on our platform, you're creating the host, you're adding the bio, you're uploading the voice sample. And if you've seen Westworld, it's ominous, right? Because you know what's coming.
It is.
And we have an ad read generator. We were excited to implement that a few months ago because it was our first foray into actually showing this to people. And so you can essentially say, here's my advertiser name or sponsor name. Here's the basic call to action. It could be 1 or 2 lines. Here's the host that I want to do the read. And it'll generate like a 2-minute ad read in the host's voice. And the magical part about it, and we were demoing this, we used as the advertiser a company that the host had worked at previously. And so when we generated the ad read in the host voice, it said, really, this is a great service. I should know as the former VP of operations there. That was a really magical moment because the copy that was being generated was taking into context the information in the bio and combining that with the fact of who the sponsor is. And that was really the first kind of Westworld moment, right? Where context creates real output, genuine output. And so there's that ad regeneration aspect. We're working right now. Our latest hire has been Sean Allen, who I consider to be one of the world's top Apple platform developers. He has experience with Vision OS. In fact, he wrote the book, the modern version of writing the book, which is he was doing on YouTube tutorials and really helping everybody learn how to use the Apple platforms. So he's a total whiz, and his task is actually building the world's greatest podcasting app. And I won't reveal exactly what he's working on, but if you just know that he's experienced with Vision OS.
I was just going to say, I heard that because I have my Meta headset sitting over there, and I know that they're releasing Vision OS here in Canada and on the next reveal here in the next couple of months. So I picked up on that with Mr. Brawer. I was going to say, did you say Vision OS? I've told you, man, I'm a nerd.
He's working on Vision OS.
Okay, say no more. I can read between the lines.
We have the transcripts, and if you've seen Star Trek and you know the holodeck,
yeah.
the picture paints itself. So that's what you can expect to see. And I'll give you a scoop here.
Please.
So you're a Mac user. Do you remember Macworld?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where Steve Jobs would keynote and Apple would release all the latest stuff they're working on. We've just started Podworld. It's a joint venture of Jason Calacanis. Podworld 1 is going to be in Austin. We're booking the venue right now. It's going to be early November. Mark your calendars. And it's going to be the world's greatest podcasting conference for podcasters by podcasters. And we will be at that keynote releasing some insanely great stuff.
Okay, so I did my best to watch this, nation. You're all going to laugh with me. So Uncle Keith was typing this up as he was talking. Podworld 1. So here's a problem we can solve. We can solve... Hey, Edward, I always say I'm here to entertain and inform. We let the informing and boring on the old boring podcasts. So this is real live content, everybody. I will, of course, edit this and make it fun. But here's the thing. Podworld 1 will be in Austin early November, the world's biggest and best podcast conference put on by Edward Brawer and the gang over at podcastai.com. Edward, I know we're running out of time and I want to be respectful of your time. And I have to ask this question, man. So this is a future question, not about your platform, because I don't want you to have to reveal the secrets. You can reveal those to me off the air. I want you to tell me, what is the 3 years, 5 years? You're a few years younger than I am. And I love your brain. When you look at the next 3 years, 5 years, you're right in the middle of AI. You're right in the middle of the world. You're right in the middle of this industry. You're connected to some big wigs in San Francisco. When you see 3 years out, 5 years out, you see the last week of OpenAI and Omni, what are you seeing, Edward?
I think that we're going to get to a point where the first people to get the chance, the opportunity, the time to work on robotics and integrate this stuff are going to create things that are absolutely surprising if you haven't seen Westworld.
It's interesting to hear you say that. Man, we must have been on the same planet over the weekend, because after seeing Omni last week and then just pausing and watching some YouTube rabbit hole last week, got into some of the Chinese robotic factories and some of the Tesla videos. And I'm thinking, if I take what I just saw with Omni and if I put it with this thing walking over here, I'm looking at Westworld right now.
Yeah, we actually prototyped a version of this in September. So we were able to do voice-to-voice chat with an AI host from our system and with access to all the transcripts as memories. And we actually found a company in Toronto that built robotic arms. And we had the AI host actually knowing that it had an arm and knowing what grip patterns it could do. And so I essentially played rock, paper, scissors with Elon Musk, the AI version. But the interesting part was really that, and this is a bug, but it gave me an idea. GPT-4 functions that came out a year ago is very powerful because it lets you have structured output, right? Not just words, but almost like a form, right? Mm-hmm. And so we can tell it when it's running through the sequence of what it wants to do. Hey, based on the context, you want to respond? Do you want to use your arm? What do you want to just wait and listen? Based on the context, it's actively running that loop. And so when it chooses to use its arm, it goes, okay, here are the type of grip patterns you can do. So if you're playing rock, paper, scissors, it could do flat, fist, or two fingers, or whatever you call it. But, and this is a bug, right? It actually broke out of the allowed patterns. Instead of saying fist, it said rock. And it was like, oh, that's a bug. Oh. But then I realized something. We could just write a function that if it comes up with an illegal, meaning not allowed, grip pattern, based on the name of the grip pattern and what's happening, come up with what the pattern should be. And you have 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 5 times, right? So it's just an array of 5 numbers, 0 to 1. So based on the context and knowing rock, it would just come up with 5 zeros. And that's the grip pattern. And what is that? If you're actually creating those dynamically, those are muscle memories. And usually we form them overnight, but this can do them on the spot. And so you start understanding, oh, actually how incredibly on point Westworld was. And we're hoping we're going to be the ones to have the first opportunity to actually work on this. I think people are there's so many things that AI can do. There's so many commercializable opportunities immediately right now that people are almost distracted by those little things.
Yes.
But the big things that are right now possible are absolutely insane.
So that's a great segue to, I guess, my next question, if I may, is the world changed with the BlackBerry. The world changed again with the iPhone, and we haven't looked back. It was a big moment in the world. GPT-4 is software, you can't see it. Hardware, the phone, you could see it, which is why. So what is going to be the big hardware moment? Is it going to be the Jony Ive, Sam Altman gadget we're going to see in the future? Is there going to be a big AI hardware moment, do you think, Edward, that's going to make the world wake up to going, oh, okay, we are now in this different world, just like we all wake up now carrying these devices? We know spatial computing is around the corner. That's not debatable. What's the next big hardware aha moment, Edward?
Yeah, it's probably going to. So the phone is a pretty versatile device. One of the things that's keeping stuff on phone is the fact that there's 2 platforms essentially. And if we're just focusing on Apple, they control the access to all your contacts, to all those things, and they don't just give access to any app. But if you actually think of what's technically possible, if Apple were building an AI agent and it had access to all those aspects of your phone, because Apple doesn't just allow app developers to access all your stuff. It used to be possible, right? How did LinkedIn start up? It would literally like boot up and get all your contacts, right? And spread itself, almost like a virus. So that was like a hack until Apple cracked down on that. But Apple's going to have the access to all your emails, absolutely everything. So who has the opportunity? It's entrepreneurs, second-time founders know distribution. I can tell right away, Apple's the only one who's going to have the context to be able to implement your version of the Star Trek ship computer. Okay, that knows where all your friends are, know what you're doing probably, based on where your friends are and what you're doing, like how it should help you or what you probably want to do next.
With privacy at the center of it, which is where we saw their conversations. We saw the seeds of that dialogue happen years ago when they started choosing the privacy narrative and then the ad stopping, the ad tracking. Like that whole narrative started 7 years ago.
Yeah, so Apple's kind of funny. It's a classic move, framing your weakness as a strength. Apple was, in some senses, ironically, they're one of the biggest cloud computing companies, but they were considered not great at cloud stuff. And so they reframed it as we're privacy first. Right? So that's reframe for you. And unfortunately, sometimes you drink your own Kool-Aid. And you should really never do that, because it got to the point where the Siri team, first of all, Apple didn't want any output to be based on LLMs. They want to control anything that's outputted. So Apple had a writer team writing out templates for every. That's why the current Siri is so bad, right? Unless you're matching a template and it can only give templated strings out, it's not really good at all. And so that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 with the whole privacy thing, the Siri team couldn't even have access to the data of what are people asking it to do, to know what even to work on, right? They were very frustrated. And all the resources were being poured into the car project, which maybe is a good idea for them, but they had to give up on it. So they're going to catch up on this stuff. And I suspect they're going to be very flexible with their privacy first stuff. They'll still work it in, whatever. It's part of the company ethos at this point. But the point is, in terms of opportunity, they have all that information. They have all that context. They're going to be able to do something really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And that's just around the corner, as we know. I think you're going to make some announcements this June at WWDC. And apparently OpenAI is going to be underpinning some of that work. It would seem, as well as perhaps Gemini is going to underpin some of that work as well, which is what it seems is happening as well, Edward. So,
yeah, it's a credibility recreating move for them.
That's exactly it. And in the same day, I wake up to read that the Humane Pin is on the market for $650 million to $1 billion. And I then put my coffee mug down and said, key. Edward Brawer, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I know I'm going to take you into overtime with the last couple minutes here, and I apologize for that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure that Business Athlete Nation knew about? Is there anything that you want to wrap up? And I want to give you this point of the show to have that moment, Edward.
Yeah, so thank you. We actually have a really interesting new feature that just came out. We trialed it about 2 months ago, and just in the last couple weeks, we developed this feature. It essentially allows you to create a show, create yourself as a host, upload your voice, all that stuff we've talked about, and then set up an AI episode generator. And what that allows you to do is say, here are 3 RSS feeds, 3 news sources, or maybe even your own personal blog, which if you're on WordPress or whatever has an RSS feed. You set up those sources and you configure the generator to run every morning at 10 a.m., let's say, every weekday morning. And you now have automatically generated episodes generated on that schedule, using as the docket those sources and running through in your voice. It has all the context. It knows what your show is. It knows your bio. It knows what you're covering. It mixes in, music out, and it fully automates those podcast episodes. We're the first platform to do it in that fully automated workflow. And this first customer for this feature has the world's first fully automated podcast in that sense. And we just opened up that feature. Again, those of you that might have a personal blog, or you want to create a podcast, but you don't have time, this might be a feature that interests you. Get in touch, podcastai.com.
Awesome. Edward Brawer, what an exceptional conversation today. I was really feeling very fortunate to have your time today and learn about your platform, learn about you, and just share some commits around the water cooler around AI and technology and geek out a little bit. So I appreciate you enlightening me and having the dialogue with me today.
My pleasure, Keith.
That's awesome. So listen, I'm just going to put you back in the green room for a quick second. I'm going to say goodbye to Nation, and I'm going to come back and walk you out, okay?
All right.
Awesome. Hang tight, my friend. All right, there goes Edward Brawer, and I am going to do this. Going to bring back in the Highline Pipes. What a great chat today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If y'all into podcasts, you're tuning in late, go back to the top of the show or read the transcripts. They're there. A lot of nuggets in today's show. The bottom line is this. You'll save 80%, maybe even up to 99% on post-producing your podcast. And if you're a creator like me, this is what you love to do. This is what you love to do. When this all stops, you're like, oh man, I got to go to work. It's true. So check out what Edward's doing at podcastai.com. I will be. I would invite you to as well. All right, I'm going to get out of here because I got to go talk to Edward, walk him out of the lab, and then get ready for tomorrow morning show. Mornings in the lab. It's Thursday. We're talking Krasky Creator Rankings. We have Faraz, I believe, joining us tomorrow morning. We go 8 o'clock Eastern time, Edward, Monday to Friday, like old school radio shows. Monday to Friday, live over on LinkedIn, X, YouTube, all the platforms. Come subscribe to us. You can find us inside.bapl.ai. We'll see you guys. We'll see you all. See you tomorrow.